I don't belong here. Sweating beneath the bright lights, my back against a white tiled wall in a windowless hospital room wearing blue scrubs. But I'm neither doctor nor patient. As the first embedded artist in VCU Health's Department of Surgery, I'm what they call a non-critical observer. With pencil and sketchbook in hand, I sit with my back against the wall and draw the surgeon as he meets with his patients and their families. But the news isn't always good news. At 6'3", 210 pounds, I can hardly make myself small enough during those private conversations to hide. For months, I shadowed surgeons in the cardiothoracic and burn centers through clinicals and surgeries. With no medical training, I was the only person in the operating room without a job. To me, in my untrained eye, surgeries were a theater of chaos. Alien devices, unknown procedures, masked faces. As I drew in my sketchbooks, it made me think of how out of place I was. As I drew in my sketchbooks, it made me think that drawing was pointless, like I was taking too much and giving back nothing. Through this work in the hospital, I found my way to a place where I really didn't understand why I was there. Everything about this screamed, "You don't belong here." Three months into my residency, on this day, everything would change. As I drew a young girl in one of the clinicals, I noticed something. You see, drawing isn't an idle practice. As you sit still, your mind moves. Unlike a quick snapshot, drawings take time. We don't take pictures, we make pictures. As we draw these things and we observe, we start to notice subtleties. And as you sit still, if you sit still long enough, you become invisible. You start to notice patterns, and the chaos becomes ordered. Now, we draw for a lot of reasons. We draw for beauty. We draw to understand. We draw to communicate. But it turns out that I wasn't drawing to see. I was drawing to listen. As I stepped out of that small hospital room and turned to my host, Dr. Feldman, I asked him, what was that device on the young girl's ear? Well, that's a compression plate. We use those to limit scarring while the patient heals. They can wear them for weeks or months. What I had noticed was a large, clunky device made up of two acrylic plates, roughly the thickness of my knuckle, which compressed across the patient's ear with two long black screws. Dr. Feldman, where does it come from? Well, we help the patient identify what they need, and we have them order something on Etsy. Etsy. This wasn't a streamlined medical device. This was a novel DIY solution to a one-of-a-kind problem. This was applied creativity used to ease the suffering of a single person. Medicine doesn't usually work that way. Medicine solves big problems for large groups of people. This was different, and something clicked. What if we 3D scanned her ear, drew up a new design for a compression plate that looked more like an earring, 3D modeled it and printed it? Dr. Feldman turned to me and said, you think we could do that? Yeah, I think we can do that. Now, you want to hear a happy ending to this story. You want to hear that that's exactly what we did. We scanned her ear, we drew up a new design, we printed it exactly as I had imagined. Well, no one's more disappointed than me to share with you that I couldn't help that young girl, nor any of the other patients that were in the hospital. Innovation in healthcare, budgets in universities move slow, and pandemics move fast. As a non-critical observer with no medical training, I was the first person sent home when COVID came calling. As I reflected back on my sketchbooks over the next months, the drawings I made in the hospital, they felt important, maybe even profound. But the drawings also served as a record and a memory that I'd failed to help this young girl. I mean, what if this was my daughter? It made me think of school. It made me think of sports, softball specifically. It made me think of missed school dances. And it made me think of how cruel kids can be when people are different. Something had shifted inside me, and I realized that I needed to figure out a way to use my drawing and my creativity to help people. You see, I noticed something when I was in the hospital. The scientific method and the creative process, they're not just similar, they're two halves of the same whole. We use different words, but we say the same thing. We observe, we document, and we collect data. We question and we hypothesize. We design experiments and we test and we build. We draw for a lot of reasons to understand the world. We draw to get the ideas that are in our heads and the emotions that are in our hearts down on the page. When they're down on the page, we can arrive at consensus. When they're down on the page, we can get to hard no's and hard yeses. Drawing can be many things, but most importantly, drawing is thinking out loud. I continued the work with the hospital, and I thought over these drawings, and I thought about my career as an illustrator. As an illustrator, I'm hired to draw pictures that speak louder than words. But illustration, it's an isolated endeavor with long hours in the studio, and if I'm being honest with a room full of strangers, I don't know if a single drawing I've ever made has actually helped somebody. But that's not the point. You'll see illustrations as movie posters, video game art, fashion illustrations, and animation for storytelling and for entertainment. But a new question was forming. No, a new hypothesis was shaping. What if? What if artists can be more than just entertainers? What if we could take the creative process and cutting-edge technologies that live in the production houses of Hollywood and video game studios over there and use them to ease human suffering and solve problems right here? As an illustrator, I'm hired to solve other people's problems. But as a creative investigator, I could embed back in the world to identify problems and solve things that people didn't even know existed. As a creative investigator, I could leverage cutting-edge technology from the world of entertainment to solve real-world problems. As a creative investigator, I could champion for empathy in healthcare, science, and engineering, and more empiricism and the arts. A creative investigator, well, it all sounds made up, doesn't it? It is. But just because I made it up doesn't mean it's any less relevant. What started off with a pencil and drawings on a page turned into an idea that was something much more. On Friday afternoons, undergraduate students from across the university in engineering, art, and programming gather in a one-story building in a windowless room at the Applied Arts Lab. Professor Jason Bennett and I established the Applied Arts Lab to leverage creative technology from the world of entertainment to foster human connection and to ease human suffering. We've stood in front of a room of NASA pilots, engineers, and inventors, and we've drawn things where they've told us, We've never seen it that way before. We've drawn storyboards for neurodivergent and nonverbal patients, children, in the Evans Haynes Burn Center to explain complex medical procedures where words alone fail to bring comfort and clarity. We've stood in the shadow of the world's largest mobile radio telescope in the nation's quiet zone, and we've drawn where no cameras are allowed. Our collaboration with CoStar Group has yielded an impossibly intricate 3D model of the Green Bank telescope, captured through drones, LiDAR, and photogrammetry. Our undergraduate students are developing a sturgeon tracker, a Phoenix mascot for the Burn Center, an infrared visualization using video game technology and engines. And students like Lily Gordon, my MC tonight, has stepped into the role of creative investigator, where she's now shadowing surgeons at VCU Health to use 3D technology to work with burn patients to develop one-of-a-kind prosthetic solutions. Flakes, weirdos, space cadets. The world has a lot of names for artists and people they don't understand. But what we are is dreamers who see the world through a different lens. Artists are the authors, the storytellers, and the designers who imagine possible futures. Science fiction is nothing more than creative prediction. Now more than ever, the world needs brilliant creative minds to help untangle wicked problems. To an artist, creativity isn't magic, it's logic. Technology is just a tool that we use to move ideas from low res into high res. Design, our best attempt to bring the wonders of the heavens into human scale and understanding. Artists belong here. Artists belong at the table with the doctors, the engineers, the scientists, the programmers, the politicians, and the policymakers. Artists can bring order out of chaos. Artists can make the unseen seen. And artists can help us design a future that we imagine. I realize that creativity alone can't solve all the world's problems. But picking up a pencil is a great place to start. Thank you.